Hey there, welcome to this week's episode of Bloomerang TV. Thanks for tuning in, as always, for 15 minutes or so for a great conversation with an expert in the fundraising world. I definitely have one of those for you today. He is Jeff Muddell, and he is the senior consultant over at the Winkler Group. Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for taking time out of your day to chat for a while. Maybe you could tell us what the Winkler Group does and what you guys are up to these days.
Sure. We are a full-service consulting firm serving clients nationwide. We're based in Charleston, South Carolina, but we have offices right here in Orlando, Florida, in Chicago, and in Nashville as well. We cover the gamut of services and of sizes of organizations and of types of organizations. We'll work on strategic planning. We'll work on capital campaigns, feasibility studies, major gift initiatives, you name it, for organizations from all walks of life. Very honored, very blessed to do what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you guys do great work, and it seems like just from looking at your website and from conversations that we have that, you know, the strategic planning and the capital campaigns, these are sort of big campaigns that people do. And I know a lot of nonprofits that we work with and talk to, they kind of struggle with the big stuff. And maybe one of the reasons is just not being ready for that campaign. So could you talk about how, you know, your philosophy of getting people actually ready to take on things like a capital campaign or some sort of major initiative? How do you know when someone's actually ready to start that endeavor?
It's a lot of introspection, a lot of looking around, a lot of self-examination, really, very much so. You know, when we start talking about capital campaigns, you think of the sizes of capital campaigns that are out there. You know, you have smaller organizations, ministries, churches, schools that are happy to raise six figures in a capital effort. Then you talk about your colleges and universities and other organizations that are raising billions with a B.
Yeah.
So capital campaigns very much mean different things to different organizations. And one of our strengths and one of the areas where we have just really shined a light on is, first, let's take a deeper look at what a capital campaign will mean to your organization, what it can mean, what it should mean, and then is it feasible? You know, planning study is very, very important in the life of creating, in the life of a development director or a head of school or an executive director interested in a capital campaign. So I think the first thing, if technology will allow me, we're going to take a look at, first, what are the types of campaigns? When we talk about campaigns, capital campaigns, what are we looking at? And there's basically 5 different types, as you see here: bricks and mortar, special projects, endowment, a combined effort or a comprehensive effort. And the bricks and mortar is clear. I mean, it's a building project. It's very clear. You know, we are this organization. We need a new building. It's going to cost X. Help us get it. Very clear to articulate, usually cash and stocks, appreciate securities, gifts in kind. Special projects are a little different because then you're taking on, well, you know, we actually have these small fix-ups, or we have equipment, technology needs. The funds needed to start something up out of thin air. It's also easy to articulate, also in that same realm of the type of gifts that you can expect. Endowment is when things get a little different, because you're talking big picture, you're talking long term, you're talking long commitment, you're talking about results that may not be seen in the short term. And this is when you really start talking about planned opportunities and securities and deferred gifts. You know, opportunities that will continue that fire burning in an organization for a good long time. And then the final two, you know, kind of be paired together. All right, what if your organization has all those needs? What if the laundry list is long and you have a building, but you also need an endowment, or you need a building and you also want to build an endowment, but you need some technology, or you have a program? Then you talk about the combined or comprehensive programs. And this is where the messaging gets more complex, most certainly. It gets harder to articulate when you're talking about a lot of buckets to fill, so to speak. It gets confusing, and the gifts are going to come from all directions in all different types. So obviously the messaging, as we say here, the PR opportunities, the economies of scale are interesting, but can also be challenging. So the first thing that we would advise certainly is to know, as you look at the long term or even the short term of what the organization's strategy is, what are the needs, clearly defining the needs, clearly defining what the mission of the organization is, and then really start taking a look inside as to what the possibilities are. I got a great, before I'm going to actually go to one more slide, because as we think about are you ready for a campaign, we like to have this in the back pocket. And we would recommend, if you're watching this and your organization is thinking about a campaign, we very much say take a look at these questions. And this is a scoreboard, more or less. And it can be filled out by a director of development. It can be filled out by a advancement team or a head or an executive director of some sort. Really challenge your organization and try to assess the readiness based on these point ranges, these categories, and give yourself a score. I mean, they are very sound. Some of them are a little broad, certainly. A sound plan for the future. Does your organization have that in its DNA? Have it in its strategic plan? Does the organization as a whole and leadership know where the organization is going? How is the prospect development plan and research system? How are you doing with annual fund? How are you doing with a regular flow of prospects and investigating prospects, identifying prospects coming in the door? Record keeping system, crucial. If there is ever a point where your donor record system will be challenged, it'll be during a capital campaign when there's a lot of activity, as you all well know. Competent staff. Does the staff know the details on how to run a capital campaign? Yes, we understand fundraising is not always a science. It's very much an art as well, but mixing the two. Do you have a competent staff? The case for support. Can you articulate what is needed, what the goals are? There's the history of gift support, an informed constituency, involved contributing board of trustees. We talk about boards an awful lot. I'm sure before this conversation is over, we'll talk a little bit more about boards. But where are the boards? And obviously, as you see, these last three, if you're doing this as a scorecard, those last three take the highest weighting.
Right. The
contributing board of trustees, qualified potential lead gift contributors. Are there people who are sitting and wait and are able to make the significant gifts? And capable volunteer leadership. So this is a great starting point for anybody who's sitting back and saying, I'm thinking about a capital campaign.
Yeah.
Give yourself your own rating. Pass it around to your team. Have them give their rating and see what score. Now, we always say a score of 75 is usually a pretty good threshold. If you can get 75 on this scorecard, you're in pretty good shape for a capital campaign. But that is not, dyed in the wool. That is not always the case. We've had organizations that have done this come up with in the 50s and have done it. But really, the whole point of that exercise is very much before you open the doors to a capital campaign and all the wonders that it may bring, both financially, from awareness, from driving donors, you really need to take a good self-assessment, take a good look introspectively, and figure out, are you truly ready? And a lot can be done in the organization itself.
Do you find that most people are ready, or do you find that most organizations just kind of jump in and start trying to raise money without going through a lot of these sort of processes of actually becoming ready?
I think we see a mix. I think certainly post 2008 economic climate, we see more understanding that you can't just jump into a capital campaign. You can't just say, hey, we're going to go raise $10 million today. Let's go. There is certainly more accountability involved, because think of a capital campaign, and I think we all know at least one, whether we are in the industry or not, that has failed. Mm-hmm. The goal was too large. The donors didn't show up in the way that everybody had thought. the project got bloated and it really messed up the messaging. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in a capital campaign.
Right.
And that's not a short-term problem. That's also a long-term problem. That's going to affect the way that your organization is going to be able to fundraise and do capital campaigns in the future. So it is critical to really have a good self-assessment before you go in. When the board, the leadership is set, we want to pursue, we want to go the next step. What is the next step? And that's where we stress a planning study is so very, very important. I know you know lots about planning studies, but let me give you one more slide too about planning studies. And what is a planning study? What are its goals? You're going to use a planning study, which is going to be an outside counsel to come in to talk to your key constituents, to talk to your leadership, and assess the internal and external readiness. It's going to determine if you are organization A and you say, well, we have priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, and we need all 3 of those things. But when you start asking, when a council comes in and starts asking those questions and getting some answers, as a third party, Stephen, I'm amazed of the information we glean in our planning studies, because
I'll bet.
Constituents will talk to us and tell us their feelings that they may not, and most of the time usually don't, tell the leadership of the organization. So, hey, we think priority 1 is critically important, and we think priority 2 is too, but priority 3, I don't care about that. and we're able to mesh all that data and figure out which priorities are truly the priorities in the minds of the folks that are going to support them. We make recommendations for a realistic and appropriate campaign goal. Obviously, work on a timetable that sets the stage for what a campaign period would look like. Identify potential campaign leaders and donors. Provide other insights on how the school or organization is viewed. And I should say, in the same vein as we are listening as outside counsel as to what the key priorities are, we are also picking up stories of champions.
Right.
The organization never knew they had.
Yeah, you pick up all these ancillary benefits you probably didn't even think of, I'm sure, through all of these exercises.
Yeah, and it's also in that last bullet point, a well-run planning study is not only going to give you the numbers. I mean, everybody's focused on the numbers. How much can we raise? Let's do a planning study to find out how much we can raise. To your point, the ancillary benefits of identifying new volunteers, new leadership, new gifts that may have just been sitting on the sidelines. We are able to bring those people to the table, listen to them, hear their stories. Champions. I mean, there are folks that I can think of meetings and interviews I've sat in and have talked to somebody and they were under the radar of the organization, and yet told me passionately how much they love and support the organization.
Yeah.
So you find champions, you find all sorts of neat information that is crucial to what the next steps are and what the next steps could be in a campaign.
So what's left? So you got your readiness assessment, you've got your planning study. Is there a last piece of the puzzle before people can actually get started, or are you ready at this point?
Again, it's going back to the internal assessment. As we, again, or as outside counsel determines in a planning study where the opportunities are, we'll also identify challenges, most definitely. And the best organizations are the ones that take a look at that score sheet earlier and say, you know what, we don't have the perfect board situation. We're not at 100% giving. I'm going to give myself a 5 on a scale of 0 to 15 there. And I know that before I feel comfortable moving forward with a campaign, I want to address that. I want to make that a priority. Efficient record keeping system, obviously. We need that. We need that. So a good internal assessment is going to be able to identify so that while the organization is considering or moving forward with a planning study, the organization is also working on its weaknesses,
Yep.
shoring up some areas that it needs to. Because once you pull the trigger and once you assemble the steering committee, once the gifts start coming in, the momentum will build. Momentum will certainly grow. In a well-run campaign, the momentum will grow. And there's no holds barred from there. It's amazing to see what can happen in an organization in the life of a capital campaign.
Yeah, it's really interesting how a capital campaign can kind of be a catalyst for fixing all of these other day-to-day issues that maybe wouldn't have gotten attention if it weren't for the capital campaign.
Very true. And what we hear all the time, and I kid you not, I just heard it again yesterday from another organization who, so many organizations are dependent upon their annual fund.
Mm-hmm.
That's critical. It's critical for operating. And they look upon a capital campaign as a necessity, but also it scares the living daylights out of them to think that they are going to cannibalize annual fund. If Joe's giving me $5,000 a year, well, I can't go asking for $5,000 for capital because he's going to take away from annual fund. That's going to take a harder operating budget. But we acknowledge and we see two things that happen. One, again, in a planning study that is done well, the goal is properly assessed based on what is seen in the community among constituents. When the goal is set, it is set at a level to address the dollars that are available above and beyond what would normally come in through an annual campaign. So that is important in messaging. This is a gift that we want you, one-time gift. We want to give. You're giving here, but for once, we want you to keep giving here. We want you to give us one gift up here. So that's critical. The other piece that we see, now this is a long-term piece as we get through a capital campaign involving the annual fund, we see the campaign lifting all ships, as they say. When a capital campaign can be so transformational, not just in the dollars raised, but in the awareness, and the awareness of the need, and telling the constituents that, boy, we did this, we built this, we created this. So there's an excitement that comes around a capital campaign. And again, if done right, it will not cannibalize the annual fund, but in fact, it will help raise the annual fund because you're bringing more people to the table to make major gifts. People see the need and they're willing to support that annual need on an annual basis at a higher level. So we see the statistics very much showing that the capital campaign is not going to cannibalize. Again, if you're running it well, that's a whole other topic for another day. But if you're running it well, you're not going to cannibalize. In fact, you're going to benefit. You're going to grow the annual fund. And I got one more slide to show you while I got you, and just some more of those internal things that may be blocking up the way. A lot of organizations, especially boards that are, may not be in the everyday organization, everyday running of the organization, will say, well, what if we fail? What happens if we fail? And once you pull that trigger, as we said, Stephen, once that ball starts rolling, you don't want it ever to stop. You want to keep plowing ahead. So, failure is not an option. You want to do what you need to do with a proper planning study, with proper work on the organizational level to prepare. I have too much on my plate already. We hear that from directors of development every single day. That's a common complaint. As a former DOD and a VP of development, I know that. But when you think about what a capital campaign can do for an organization, it should be the most important item on the plate. Yeah, it is. We acknowledge it's a big upfront investment in a consultant, to bring in a consultant to do a planning study, bring in a consultant to assist with a capital campaign. But it's a worthwhile investment that has got a wonderful return on ROI. My board isn't engaged. Well, this is the time to get them engaged. In the lead up to a capital campaign, get them engaged. Allow the machine to work. Allow the board to work for you. Bring them in. Get them excited. Very critical. There's that readiness assessment. Look back on that and always focus on those weak areas. If you know there's if you know you're lower on something, you may not be able to fix that overnight. You may not be able to fix that in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But acknowledging it's a problem and continuing to work through it, even during a planning study and into a capital campaign, is going to be critical. And then again, use the planning study, do the planning study. It is the fire starter. It is the piece that gives you all the background you need, and really makes it worthwhile. Homes in on a goal, gives you feedback that you, as a DoD executive director, are not going to get yourself. Very critical. So we always preach the importance of a planning study.
I love it. I'm excited. I kind of want to do.
Let's go raise some money. Let's go. Let's go do planning study right now. Raise some money.
I want to do that scorecard for a couple of nonprofits that I'm on too, just for the fun of it. Because I'm a dork, so I think it's fun.
That would be good. Yeah, it's a wonderful tool, and it really encapsulates. You'll have an organization that'll say, "Yeah, we're ready. Sure. Oh yeah, let me fill this out," and they come back, "Ooh, maybe not."
Yeah, maybe not.
And of course,
that's okay.
Of course, and of course, a good counsel, a good consultant can also walk you through and assist you with those opportunities you may see with board development, or with strategic planning, or with working on internal pieces and parts that go into running a day-to-day operation. So again, we are at the Winkler Group are grateful for all the organizations that have trusted us. Our team is so experienced. We have such a wide, vast range of experience, and when we present this capital campaign presentation, are you ready for a capital campaign? The response is always very positive, because people are asking that question. We don't know.
Right.
Help us. So this information is certainly a great starting point for any organization thinking about it.
This is super helpful. Jeff, where can people find out more about you? Where can they find your website and get in touch with you guys?
Sure, you can visit us at winklergroup.com.
Cool.
Anytime.
We'll have them check you out. You guys obviously know your stuff. Might have to have you back for a webinar, because I feel like we could probably talk for a couple more hours on all this stuff.
There's lots to talk about, most definitely.
Well, Jeff, this is awesome. Thanks for being here, and thanks to all you guys for watching. We'll be back next week with another great guest and another great conversation. So we'll see you then.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Bloomerang.
All right. Bye now.